appropriate way on our level. But what here I want to talk about is this DTV transition and what we can do in Los Angeles to make your lives easier for your constituents. This refers to the migration from analog to digital technology. All analog broadcasting from major broadcasters is going to cease on June 12th. What's significant about this is that despite the delay, we allowed stations to go early if they wanted to. On February 17th, when they were supposed to go, we learned last night, based on information that we were requesting from broadcasters, that every broadcaster in LA is going to wait until June 12th, which is a great relief because I think it would cause some confusion if some were going and some weren't. So I'm pleased with that development. This digital transition means that local broadcasting stations can provide a lot of good things to constituents. It's a more efficient type of technology. So you can, with that same space you used to have one channel, now there's space for 4 or 5 TV channels. Maybe it'd be nice if they would dedicate some to local elected officials and to issues confronting the community and democracy. We at the FCC have a responsibility to make sure that happens, and I think we will work in that direction.
Thanking his colleague, Tony Cardenas, District 11 Councilmember Bill Rosendahl also welcomes FCC Commissioner Jonathan Edelstein and asks for a look at the future.
Now, what do you see as the FCC's role when it comes to this whole First Amendment business?
Well, you know, in terms of content regulation, the FCC is highly restricted in terms of what we can do under the First Amendment, but we have an obligation to ensure that broadcasters are functioning in the public interest. That's our charge on the FCC. I'm afraid that we haven't lived up to our mandate from Congress to do that. We need to have public interest obligations on new digital broadcasting. We talk about these additional channels that all of your viewers can see. You're going from 13 channels here in LA to 55. What's going to be on those additional channels? What's going to be on those that are relevant to the city, to the democracy, to the issues that voters will have to deal with when they go to the polls? A study from right here in Los Angeles from Marty Kaplan at the University of Southern California found that there's a virtual blackout of any coverage of state and local and municipal affairs in television news nationwide, not just here in LA. If it bleeds, it leads is all you see, and there's enough bleeding to be leading here in LA. There's not a lot of room for what is the city council doing. But what really impacts the lives of the people in LA? Is it somebody got murdered in one part of town, or is it what you're doing here every day to affect how this city develops?
The big question of the day was asked by District 3 Councilmember Dennis Zine, and that question was about paying for the digital converters and the availability of coupons to defray the costs of those converters.
On the issue of the coupons that have been given out, a number of people got those coupons and they didn't know there was an expiration date on it.
That's right.
Is there any way to have that extended for those folks that have it, that didn't think there was an expiration and were trying to make arrangements to get that purchase and save that $40?
I actually have a good answer on that. Yes, there is. It was just a change made in law. The very same bill that moved the deadline from February 17th to June 12th allowed consumers to apply for one additional coupon. Initially, they were allowed to apply for 2, but if either one expired before they use it, they can apply for an additional coupon. Right now, as I indicated, there's a waiting list, but I'm encouraging people to go ahead and apply right now because that waiting list is growing every day.
Is there any way on the expired coupons, since they haven't redeemed them, to have those validated so they will be able to redeem those?
I've been told by the Department of Commerce that there isn't, that they're going to have to issue a new one and go through this whole rigmarole. I think the whole system, which was designed to prevent fraud, has really been kind of inadequate to the task. I mean, if it was all electronic and they gave the information to the retailers directly and it was on a big database, we could have done that. But they decided to avoid fraud. They would go through this, elaborate thing of cards and mail these out. They mailed them out third class. So a lot of people didn't get them for a month, and they only have 90 days on them, so they didn't have much time to buy them. They didn't notice there's this little tiny thing here that says it expires at the bottom. Right. Who would look at that? So it was really, like I say, a mismanaged program. At least we have a chance now for people to reapply. So they should do that immediately, because if they get on this waiting list, we're going to work people off the waiting list in order that they got on. So it's urgent that people apply now, even though they might have heard that there's no money in the program, because Congress will probably restore funding in the stimulus package.
Joining us now by phone is District 6 Councilmember Tony Cardenas. Mr. Cardenas, welcome back to Council Week in Review.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Another busy week in council chambers. You were one of the 4 no votes for support of that state bill that would ban construction of any new digital billboards. This doesn't in any way say you're in favor of the expansion of digital billboards, does it?
No, not at all. What my concern was is local control. Anytime the state legislature tries to do something, a lot of times they probably should be using a scalpel, and they tend to use a butcher knife. And what they're talking about here, one of the first things that I noted when I was reading the state legislation by Mr. Fuhr, Assemblyman Fuhr, is that it said that they would ban billboards that are visible from highways. Well, for example, in my district, if you go over one of the overpasses, you can see every corner of the San Fernando Valley as you're driving on that freeway. So does that mean if an electronic billboard is 2 miles off of the freeway, but if it's visible, is it going to be affected by that? That is the control and the jurisdiction of the local planning authority, which in this case would be the city of Los Angeles. We wouldn't be able to even discuss that billboard at all, good, bad, or otherwise.
Another point of discussion, of course, is about the length of the ban. A 2-year ban to some seems a little lengthy, not very business-friendly. Shouldn't we be able to come to a consensus in less than that much time, beneficial to both residents and business?
Yeah, I think so. One of the reasons why Fuhr is even running this assembly bill is he's telling us that the federal government feels that it's time that they get some results from some studies as to whether or not it affects people's driving or it's detrimental to people being able to be safe on the streets and on our highways. And yet at the same time, he's not sure when that study is going to be done. And one of the questions that I asked in council was, have you ever heard of the federal government saying that they're going to come out with some study results, say in the next 6 to 12 months, and it might take a year or 2 or 3, or they never finish that study? And he had to admit that he has known that to happen. So that being the case, he could be talking about having a ban for 2 years, and oops, the federal government still hasn't given the answers to their studies, and then run another bill that bans it for another 2 years.
You mentioned a moment ago local versus state control. Perhaps one of the fears is that once the state does take control of the billboard issue in general, then the city might have very little to say about what billboards look like or even where they might be located.
Oh, absolutely. Again, local government is always subjected to state law. So once they pass a state law, our hands are tied. And that's something that I'm always worried about. I'm a former legislator myself, and I can be honest with you and tell you that I wasn't as sensitive back then, having never served on local government. Now that I'm a city council member and I realize how critical it is to business and the economy that we have the flexibility we need to keep moving the economy forward, every time the state ties our hands, it hurts jobs, it hurts local government, it hurts local communities.
Of course, another point that came up in the discussion around the horseshoe had to do with the revenue, that if the state was able to get their hands on control of, for example, you mentioned billboards that can be seen from the freeways, perhaps they could take over the revenue stream as well.
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at the newspapers today and all week and probably into the next few months, you're going to see that the state of California is in a real dire situation when it comes to the budget. They're cutting public education. They're trying to find revenue anywhere that they can. And believe me, they don't balk at all at trying to swoop money that normally should go to our local cities and keep it for themselves. So again, this is something that we have to have our eyes wide open about, and I'm really worried when the state of California says, don't worry, we're just doing this for a little while. Don't worry, we won't take your money. Because in the past, when they've said that, they've actually doubled back, and they have taken our money, and they have taken away our jurisdiction.
Listening to the discussion around the council chambers, it occurred to me as a viewer that if the state took control, that presumably they would also be responsible for policing illegal billboards, and frankly, I think that's less likely to happen.
Yes, correct. You're absolutely right. Anytime that you have further and further away from home jurisdictions actually taking care of an issue or policing an issue, you have less policing. For example, when it comes to public access channels, things of that nature, we used to have a lot of public access channels here in Los Angeles. We forced the cable companies to actually have that for the public, and we enjoyed one of the most beneficial public access environments in the country. But now that the state of California changed that law, now the state of California is in charge of that, and we've lost almost all of our public access channels because it is no longer a local jurisdiction issue. Now it's up to the state to enforce, and they're pretty much not enforcing that at all.
We certainly want to get on to that topic in just a moment, but one last question on the billboard topic, which has now gained support of council with you one of 4 no votes. If it does pass in Sacramento, what's your take on what happens then?
Well, first it's got to pass through the legislature, and I'm curious. I was talking to one of my colleagues on the floor, and I said, even if the legislature passes it, I wonder if Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor, would actually sign it, or he would err on the side of saying, no, it's a local control issue. I shouldn't be allowing the legislature and myself to take control. So it has to pass the legislature and the governor's signature. If it does do that, I think that our hands are going to be tied, and unfortunately, it's very common for the legislature to once they get their foot in the door to actually take control for a longer period and forget about the fact that we had the control in the first place.
Got it. Let's go back now to the topic that you brought up about television. Will we all still be able to watch our favorite shows, all the channels, when we make the conversion from analog to digital? Oh, and by the way, is digital really going to be that much better?
Well, actually, the reason why they're all going to digital is because it is the way of the future. And when you go to digital signals, what happens is that something called spectrum, and they have an opportunity where maybe they could only have 50 channels. Now they can do as many as 500 channels accessible to a person that has that digital ability in their home. But what the problem that we have right now is on February 17th, the federal government had required all the television stations that are actually putting out signals to convert to digital. But luckily, they actually postponed that till the middle of June of this year. So we got lucky. Another thing as well is these private companies actually have the right to go digital as of February 17th anyway. They are going to do that in some parts of the country, but we had the FCC Commissioner, Jonathan Edelstein, in front of us in City Council, and he announced to us that the night before he was talking to us in City Council, he got the news that none of the providers of signals in Los Angeles were going to convert to digital on February 17th. So we still have more time. And the person I'm worried about the most is seniors, poor families, low-income families. I'm worried about them because we have an estimated as many as 100,000 households that still either have the rabbit ears on top of the television or that little antenna on the top of the roof where sometimes they send them up there to kind of turn it in different directions. They don't have cable. They don't have satellite. And those are the people that are going to be at a loss. And the federal government is going to provide for them an opportunity to get at least 2 vouchers per household. So the first $40 per digital box, conversion box, will actually be covered by the federal government. People need to know that, so we need to get the word out.
Well, and you just brought up a tremendously important point, as you just pointed out, and I heard from an FCC official myself. Los Angeles is the #1 market in the country, believe it or not, for people using antennas and rabbit ears still.
Yeah, I found that out. I thought maybe we were the second or third in the country. They say by far, Commissioner Edelstein reminded us that we are the #1 community. Los Angeles has more people who use rabbit ears or the old-fashioned antenna on their roof, and they don't have these other new systems. So we have more people who are in danger of not having signal in their home. And as Commissioner Edelstein said from the FCC when he was before us, he said, we're not just concerned about people watching television, we're concerned about the emergency broadcasting systems and things of that nature that they won't have access to.
One of the other things that was said, I believe during public comment in council, is that instead of costing $40 or whatever you can get along with the coupon, these converter boxes really ought to be free to the public, and the broadcasters are going to be making money off the advertising, won't they?
Yeah, yes, the broadcasters do make money off the advertising, but at the same time, the federal government, for some reason, has come up with these coupons or vouchers that are free, 2 per household, and they're going to cover most of the cost of these converters. So maybe between now and then in June, maybe we'll find that maybe private industry will lower the price from $50, $60 a box down to $40 and just say, give us a voucher, we'll give you a box. So that remains to be seen, whether or not anybody's going to have to shell out any dollars out of their pocket in order to keep their old TV set and not have to go out and buy a new one and then not have to shell out any money to be able to watch their television.
And finally, with 55 new channels when the conversion does take place, can the city reserve one of these for Channel 35?
Actually, well, that's another battle we're going through. Some of the cable companies are being very good about keeping Channel 35 on Channel 35, but we also have another big company that is coming into the market, and they want to put it on Channel 39, and it's a very complicated process, but we could probably talk about that when it comes to the council in the next 3 weeks. But it's really important for people to understand that public access is very important, and that's one of the reasons why they're going digital, so that they can have more ability to have more public access, hopefully. But Channel 35 is something that people watch, and it's something that a lot of people enjoy, and it allows people to be informed not only about what's going on in their government, but also a lot of the programming that is free to the public and gives them information that they wouldn't otherwise get anywhere else.
Well, thanks for all the great insight. District 6 Councilmember Tony Cardenas, thanks for joining us on Council Week in Review.
Thank you, Jack.
The update on the status of digital television was noted and filed. Now, if you have a question about obtaining a digital converter coupon, go to the dtv.org website or dial 311, your one call to City Hall, for further information. LA City View is the government access cable channel for the City of Los Angeles, featuring live coverage of city council meetings and programming about city department services and events. You can watch city council meetings live or view past meetings by going to the city's website at lacity.org and follow the instructions for video on demand. And we invite you to address the Los Angeles City Council on any item on the council agenda, as well as during public comment. You may come downtown to City Hall or go to the Van Nuys City Hall and participate via video teleconferencing. And remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. and on Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending February 13th, 2009. On behalf of Taffy Eason and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
Hi, I'm Antoinette Cristobal, Director of Finance for the City of Los Angeles Office of Finance. We are excited about a few changes we have made for the upcoming year in regards to filing your business taxes in the city. We have updated and streamlined the business tax renewal booklet, making it more simplified to use.
Worried that this year's business tax renewal form will be another mind-boggler and stressful task? Too confused about how to fill out the paperwork? Well, don't be. This year, the Office of Finance has redesigned and condensed the business tax renewal form. The number of pages have been reduced and instructions have been simplified, all for you. Simplify this year's stress. Look for the business tax renewal form in the mail starting late December. And for those businesses that filed online last year, you'll receive a reminder postcard instead of the package. Making life a little simpler.
I'm Antoinette Cristobal. Thank you so much for watching. On behalf of the City of Los Angeles, we want to make this process simple and efficient.
Sometimes things don't always go as planned, except when you vote. You can be assured when you vote on Election Day using InkaVote Plus, you won't accidentally vote a blank ballot, and the reader will check your ballot for overvotes. You can count on your ballot being accurate. It's nice to know some things do go as planned.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Los Angeles, and welcome to our City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 17th, 2009. We're here in the John Ferraro Council Chamber, room 340 of City Hall, where we meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m., except for the first Friday of the month, in which we meet in Van Nuys City Hall in order to bring City Council closer to all Angelinos. I want to welcome members of the public who have joined us here in Council Chambers, as well as those who are out in Van Nuys, and our viewers on Channel 35, which broadcasts each of our council meetings live through the city's cable system and rebroadcasts in the evening as well. Two other ways you can follow council meetings are online at our city's homepage, lacity.org, where we have live streaming webcasts of our council meetings and archive footage of our past meetings, and through your telephone by calling the number 213-621-CITY. That's 213-621-CITY, service known as Council Phone, which you can listen not only into our council meetings, but also any of our full committee meetings as well. Also online are our agendas, which are available in person here in council chambers or the city clerk's office. Those are made available to the public 72 hours in advance or 24 hours in advance for our special meeting items. We also have information about city departments, elected officials, services of the city online at lacity.org as well. Our agendas are split up into items that have already held a public hearing in committee and those that have not yet had a public hearing. Anybody who fills out a card to speak on one of the items that has not yet had a hearing will trigger a public hearing, so feel free to fill out a card in the back and hand that to one of the sergeants at arms. You can also fill those out for other items, but it will require a council member to reopen the public hearing in order to hear public testimony in this forum. We also have a section of the meeting which is general public comment. That is available for folks to give comments on items that are not on our agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the city. We'd be pleased to hear your comments. The same mechanism, just fill out a speaker card in the back and hand it to one of the sergeants at arms, and we'll be sure to get you into the mix. Also, if you're out in Van Nuys or that's closer to where you live, you can always go there and fill out a speaker card and testify remotely from our Van Nuys City Council chambers, which is a service of the Information Technology Agency. We are joined today we have 7 members of the City Council. It is past the hour allotted for council members to be here on time, so the following council members are still late. Council members Alarcon, Gruhl, Hahn, Huizar, Reyes, Smith, and Zine. Mr. Weiss is excused today for city business. And I'm sorry, Ms. Gruhl, we've been told is expected to arrive at 10:30. So Mr. Alarcon, Ms. Hahn, Mr. Huizar, Mr. Reyes, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Zine. We need 3 more members of our 15-member body to constitute 2/3 or a quorum. So we thank you for your patience while we're awaiting those late council members. Thank you to those who are here on time. Gold stars to Mr. Cardenas, Mr. Labange, Mr. Parks, Ms. Perry, Mr. Rosendahl, and Mr. Wesson. But we are still awaiting council members Alarcon, Hahn, Huizar, Reyes, Smith, and Zine. Thank you for your patience. If we do not establish a quorum in the next few minutes, we will have to cancel for lack of a quorum. And if the sergeants at arms can please assist us in inquiring as to those members and to get them down here. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruhl, Hahn, Huizar, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Reyes moves and Mr. Smith seconds. Without objection, those will be approved. Next order of business.
Mandatory resolutions for approval.
Ms. Hahn moves and Mr. Parks seconds. Without objection, those will be approved as well. Next order of business.
Mr. President, this is Tuesday, and there's a flag salute.
I could ask everybody to please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. And Ms. Perry, if you will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please place your right hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks very much, Ms. Perry. Next order of business, Mr. Clerk.
On the regular agenda, item 1 is an ordinance notice for public hearing.
Okay. Do we have any cards on that? I do not see any.
There are no cards.
Okay. We will
Mr.
go.
President, you do expect 12 members today. Do you wish to hold that?
Yeah, let's hold that till we have one more member. We're still awaiting Mr. Alarcon, Mr. Zine. Next items, please.
Items 2 through 19 are items for which public hearings have been held. On item 2, the applicant consents to a continuance to February 25th.
Okay, without objection, we'll continue that till the 25th of February.
And, Mr. President, for information on item 18, the Atwater Village Neighborhood Council submitted a community impact statement this morning supporting the zoning parking credit program.
Excellent. That is nice to see the community impact statement. We'll make sure that's part of the record. We will go ahead and take specials. Mr. Reyes?
Thank you, Council President. We can continue item 14 for 30 days.
Okay, that would take us to March 17th. That's recess, so we would, what would be the next day after that, Mr. Clerk?
March 20th.
Okay, March 20th, okay? All right.
good. Thank
Without objection, we'll continue it to March 20th. Mr. Parks?
I'd like to have 4, 5, and 6 special, and we can combine them. Also, number 7 for Ms. Gruel when she gets here, and also if we could approve both reports on number 19.
Okay. We'll move both reports. Without objection, Mr. Weezar, and then Ms. Hahn.
Number 9 special, please.
Number 9 for Mr. Weezar. Ms. Hahn?
Yes, I'd like to continue item 8 until tomorrow, and I
Okay.
want to make sure that CDD and CRA staff are here and ready to answer my questions.
All right.
And I would
Do you want to
also
say
like-
that with a tougher tone, even?
Yes.
It was
Without a
pretty
smile.
tough. I was kind of
Let me try it
scared,
again.
but I want to make sure.
That's item 8.
Number 8. Is there any objection to continuing that one day? If not, we will go ahead and do that. And the CRA and the CDD staff will be here to answer Ms. Hahn's questions.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
appreciate that added emphasis.
Absolutely, Mr.
And I'd also like to continue item 16 until tomorrow as well.
All right. We'll continue that one without objection as well. Mr. Zine?
Mr. President, if you can please move both the budget, finance, and personnel reports on number 19.
That was done by Mr. Parks, but we will do it again for you. Any other specials, colleagues? 11 for Mr. Alarcon. If there are no other special items, excuse me. One is, but we're about to vote now that we have 13 members, but we'll come back to that in a second. So if there's no other special items and those, let's go ahead. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes. Excuse me, 12 ayes.
Those are approved. Let's go back to number 1. Mr. LeBon, do you want to call it special? Otherwise, we'll take a vote on it. Sorry? You want to call it special?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll call number 1 special then for...
Do we
we'll
take it
open
now or later?
We're going to take it in just a bit. We're going to go to public comment and we'll come back to it. Next items, please.
Items 20 through 30 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, if there's no objection to consideration, those items are before us. Colleagues, items 20 through 30. Any specials? Yes.
21 special.
21 special for Mr. Cardenas. Do we have cards in the public on any of these?
Yes, Mr. President. 22, 23, and 24.
Okay, those will be called special for cards from the public. Thank you. Colleagues, any other specials for those items? If not, let's go ahead and please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you. Next item, please.
On the supplemental agenda, items 31 through 34 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, do we have any public comment cards on those?
There is a card on item 31.
Okay, we'll call that special for cards from the public. We'll open and close the other ones. Any specials 32 through 34?
33, 34.
For Mr. Zine, 33 and 34. That leaves us 32. Anybody wishing to call 32 special? If not, please open the roll on 32, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Okay, that one is approved. We'll send that forthwith without objection, please. That should take us back to our general public comment, which is for items not on the agenda, but nevertheless under the jurisdiction of the City Council. And I'd like to call first Lucille Caruso. Is Lucille Caruso here? There we go. And Clyde Williams will follow. Each speaker has 2 minutes. We have a clock on the podium there to help you guide your times. And thank you very much for coming in, and good morning.
Good morning. I only have 2 minutes, but I have this book called Women of the 60s, right? And it, in one paragraph it says, and I really believe this, we certainly belong to a generation that was special. We did not need or care about history because we sprung out of nowhere. You know, I was told the stork delivered me. But I went through all, because yesterday was President's Day, and I have an older book, because it was hard for me to understand stuff. So, you know, in order for me to get my, to graduate, you had to pass this Constitution. And so I look at things like this that are scary in the paper, you know, Lost Decade and all these, well, this looks like Sycamore and Romaine, actually, but all these people in the food line, and it talks about the 100 days of Congress when Roosevelt was here. And I looked through all this, and we always pulled out of stuff. And we always pulled out of things, and so I don't think like we're based on hope, we're based on faith. I mean, it just clearly says we're a powerful nation. I don't know why they scare us. And anyway, what I really wanted to talk about was, of course, my favorite subject, transportation. And so recently I had gotten a job, but I couldn't keep it because of some medical issues. But it was in Goleta, and I could take the Orange Line at Warner Center to catch these types of really nice buses, very convenient. They were only $2. And it's called Coastal Express, free wireless internet, check your emails, surf the web, even work while you commute. Makes your commute time productive instead of stressful. But the bottom line is the times don't coordinate regarding Measure R. The bottom line, I'm trying to say that it's more convenient for the driver rather than the commuter for me to be able to use it productively. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Clyde Williams. After that is Arthur Hansen.
Well, my name is Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, CD 14. Public comments. March 3rd is a very important election. Please register to vote, either by mail or in person. The Friends of Southwest Museum have been around for several years. We've now passed a year waiting for the Autry National Center to come to the public forum. They have a lease with the Parks and Rec Department for 11 acres of Griffith Parks. They have defaulted on every condition within the lease agreement, except that no controller, no audits have ever been done. They were supposed to submit their 2008 annual reports. They haven't. Maybe it's time to take the land back because they have clearly defaulted. If you want some money, then put it out to a competitive bid for a new lease. The Southwest Museum is involved in it because the Autry wants to take the collections from the Southwest Museum in order to validate their presence as a museum. They want to destroy the first museum in Los Angeles. Please help save the Southwest Museum. Thank you.
Thank you. Arthur Hansen is our next speaker. After that is Arnold Sachs.
Yes, I've spoken to the Personnel Committee and the Civil Service Commission. At present, we suspend or terminate an employee without a full hearing, and every now and then, probably about 10 to 50% of the time, the people get their time back. In effect, we're given a paid vacation. Would be a lot better if the employee was being suspended, got a full hearing before he was suspended, so to see if the charges were in fact valid. It would probably save the city quite a bit of money and probably damages also. They just settled a few cases in court because of hearings being held, and they determined the person wasn't guilty or didn't get as much time as they wanted to. The other issue is the Civil Service Commission manager hasn't seen fit to determine what classes should be re-examined when they're promoted between one department and another. It would probably save the city a few $1,000s. And I'll save the rest for 23. Thank you.
Arnold Sachs is our next speaker. After that, we'll go to Rick Nightingale out in the San Fernando Valley.
Yes, good morning, Arnold Sachs. At the last Transportation Commission committee hearing, there was a review of the late-night dash service that was initiated in downtown L.A. and the Red Line to run in downtown L.A. That was paid for by donations. It cost $23,000 for 3 dash buses to run, and I don't believe those were 8-hour schedules. It cost $4,100 for the Red Line to run from 12 to 4 in the morning. Numbers get thrown around, you get budget numbers, but it's nice to have a breakdown here. It would be really nice to get an audit on these numbers to see why it costs over $7,500 to operate a dash bus in downtown LA, to see why it costs $4,100 to operate the Red Line for 4 hours. Get closer to the truth. Back on Prop B again. There was an article in the February LA Times. They asked candidates running for office what they thought of Prop B. Measure B also contains strong accountability provisions, including annual audits by the City Controller and a Citizens Oversight Committee to ensure that this program is developed and implemented in an efficient and transparent manner. I can't tell you how much is wrong with that statement, but let's just start with accountability, Citizens Oversight Committee, and transparent manner. 3 of the favorite words of the City Council and city politicians. When you hear those, time to duck and cover. Prop B is nowhere. Vote for change nationally. If you don't vote locally, there's no change locally. Keep that in mind.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sachs. We'll go out to Van Nuys next, and Rick Nightingale, to be followed by Matt Dowd in Van Nuys. Good morning.
Yeah, Rick Nightingale. Yeah, I couldn't believe. I hope Zuma Dog's right there to listen to this. I turned around and the other day, over the weekend, there was a survey that called my house. Turns around and they started out and they said, "Oh, do you have a few minutes?" I said, "Sure I do." They started out, "Well, how do you think the city's run and so forth, and how do you think the mayor's doing?" Okay, well, and then they hurried up and went like for the schools and the streets and so forth. And I said, "Well, I'm not too happy with it all, just the way it's been run, the way the money's going around." And so they said, "Well," then they asked me my age. I said, "Well, you shouldn't that," but I told them. And they went and asked me nationality. I went, "Wait, who's paying for this thing? Is the mayor paying for this, since you were asking all these questions about the mayor?" "Oh, no, it's paying probably by the city." Well, what's the city have to do? And every question was regarding the mayor. I asked, "What about one of the council members?" "Oh, we don't. That's not on our list." "What about our excuse me? What about the city controller?" "Oh no, that's not on our list. This is what's written on my list." Then I said, "Well, they listed the people for who's running for mayor, and Zuma Dog wasn't even on it." I said, "You sure Zuma Dog ain't on it?" "Oh no, he's not on our list." I said, "Oh, wait a minute." So what I'm getting at is, where's the right that the mayor has a right to turn around and spend our money doing a survey when it's strictly about them? I'm sorry, that is not fair, and you can't do that. That's discrimination. And I don't see where it is, and if the council has any whatever, I don't want to say it, they ought to check into this thing. Same as when, excuse me, Jack Weiss is running on the thing, on the ballot, and he's saying about the DNA. I remember distinctly me bringing all that up, him not doing a darn thing about it, and if it wasn't with Laura Cheeks having an audit on him, it still wouldn't have been done. So he's being a false advertiser, the same as the mayor. It was like the police, our chief is saying about that. If it wasn't for our garbage pickup that you did illegally to begin with, it wouldn't be there either. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nightingale. Matt Dowd is our next speaker, to be followed by Hef the Great.
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to be in the valley always. But guess what? My spot check on the remote location, and there's no agendas to be found. The councilman's office is closed. So I'm disappointed with the councilmen from the valley, a couple of them. You know, Tony Cardenas tried to hijack the elephant money, and see what happened. The council shut him down over that one. And then I'm not amused with Richard Alarcon trying to vote. See, his control is more important than public safety when it comes to these billboards. Now, that's a state initiative, it's a public safety thing, and these guys are trying to vote against that. You know, obviously, they're voting for campaign money, not for the public well-being and safety. Now, let me get on to the mayor. The elections are coming up. See, Zuma Dog, he's actually, if you look at his blog and a lot of the things, he stays on the topic. He won't have any of that fluff. He doesn't get involved in any of these sideshows. See, that's what you need from an executive when you're in a tough situation. So there's plenty of alternatives to the current mayor who's only done 11%. You know, that's a publicly reported fact that they researched. 11%. I mean, Zuma Dog, he's there all the time. You get 89% from Zuma. So, and I see the other mayoral candidates, like Phil Jennerjan, I think the other day he said something about he could be the boss of the city council. See, that's crazy. The city council are elected as well. You're not the boss. You're the executive to run the city and make sure those departments run efficiently and save money and get on budget. And that's the kind of thing he can do. So that's why I'm here. And Van Nuys, there's no agendas. It's another one of these things. The clock's going.
Thank you. We'll look into the agendas of Van Nuys and appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Hef the Great is the next card, also in Van Nuys. After that is Daniel Wiseman here in Chambers.
How you doing, City Council? I just come out here from Venice and got out here in Van Nuys. It's real lovely out here. Venice is raining, pouring, cats and dogs, so we had to come somewhere else just to get our message across about the felons who need to go out there and vote. The other week you said that we could have felons go and vote, so I'd like to see if the City Council can some kind of way get a message out to the felons of the city of Los Angeles to go out and vote, because we have a new representative that wants to make some decisions for this city that's going to be best for us, and I think that's going to be Zuma Dog. And I'm out here trying to let everybody know that I'm a felon, and I know one person who can make some changes for the people who are like me, and that's why I'm up here for Zuma Dog. And
Daniel Wiseman is our next speaker here. After that is Michael Carrion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti. I want to pose a series of questions, not only for you members of the council, but for everyone who's going to go and vote for Measure or against Measure B on March 3rd. The handout has the answers that I think are proper, but I want each of you to make your own answer. Number one question, did the DWP Board of Commissioners receive and review and approve the total LA solar plan before Measure B went on to the ballot? The answer is an unequivocal no. Did the DWP make its own calculations prior to putting this out public? Any big company that doesn't know what it's doing and doesn't tell you how much it's going to cost is not a company that's going to earn our respect and our support. Why is the DWP relying on the cost analysis of others? A corollary question to the previous one. Why haven't we gotten a full Huron report? We've got 22 pages of fluff, and the real substance has never been made public. When will the whole program be really made public, and when will the public have a true opportunity to talk about it and involve themselves in it so that we can really understand it? This pushing it through to the ballot is sort of facetious. It doesn't make any difference whether it passes on the ballot or not. It's part of the total solar plan, and it's going to be part of the total solar plan in the future, no matter whether the electorate votes for it or not. I want to make one comment about the statement of the DWP. They say they've gone out to over 30 locations, and I heard Mr. Aaron Benjamin last night at another location. I think it's about 7 that I've heard so far. But in spite of that, everywhere they go, the neighborhood councils vote no. 28 of them have done so far.
Thank you, Mr. Weissman. Michael Carrion is our next speaker. After that is Elizabeth Crawford.
Yes, my name is Michael Carrion. I'm from District 14. Once again, the city hasn't done anything about the illegal parking of the police department. And then I ask myself, how can we elect Wendy Gruhl to audit if she can't even deal with the simple things in front of her? Mr. Labange had a fire in Griffith Park, and boy, in a couple of days, he passed an ordinance. There was no smoking in the parks at all, period. So when the city wants, they can move real fast. Okay? When the city wants, they can drag their butt like snails. They don't have to do nothing. Just sit here and get a paycheck. My question is, how do we re-elect somebody if they're not doing anything? Wow. Let's go to the mayor, who doesn't want to show up for debates or anything. Mr. Villaraigosa ran for councilman. First he ran for mayor. I voted for him. He lost. He ran for councilman. I voted for him. He won. He said he would not run for mayor. He lied. He ran for mayor. When he won, he said he'd take care of District 14. He lied. He got married and told his wife he wouldn't cheat on her. He lied. Okay? Mayor Villaraigosa is only out there looking for his next ex. He is not looking out for the city. He's not looking out for you or me or for anything else. He's looking on how to get laid. If you pardon the expression, that's all he's out there doing.
Sir, if you can please keep it to things that are under our jurisdiction. Thank you.
That is under the jurisdiction.
It is not. Thank you very much, sir. That'll be your last
It's
warning.
under the roof. It's nothing nobody doesn't know. You can
to show us an educational institute at schools around
He's been warned, Mr. Labange. He gets one warning.
If you cut the speaker's opportunity, he violated the good speaking rights of
As
all.
we've gone through the city attorney, you get one warning, and that's the last warning.
Okay. Can you put my time back on there? Okay. Since I was scolded, why don't you scold the rest of you people for lying? Sitting here and telling us how great of a job you're doing, giving us numbers that you get out of Cracker Jack boxes.
Thank you, sir.
Where you guys, you didn't give me my time, sir.
I gave you some extra time past that. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That will close our public comment now. Elizabeth Crawford is our next speaker. After that, we have somebody from the Granada Hills South Neighborhood Council. I don't have a name, but that'll be the next speaker. Good morning.
Thank you. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you. Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Crawford. I'm with Sun Power Systems. How are you? Good to see you. My company is a private financing company designed specifically to install large solar plants for utility-sized companies. And obviously I have a lot of interest in Measure B. I've spoken in front of the Energy and Environment Committee regarding this issue. I've been reading the measure, reading all of the financial analyses that goes along with it. And would that it were a perfect world, but it's not, and we're facing some very difficult realities here, which, excuse me for going over some of the figures that I've said before. Los Angeles faces a population increase of 3 million people by 2030. We get 72% of all of our energy from fossil fuels. There are 6 outstanding laws over our heads that are going to change that. We simply cannot continue status quo. Measure B, in one fell swoop, will double the amount of solar that is installed in the country. And I am here to tell you, I've made 3 visits here to assure every single one of you, we have read these financial analyses through and through. And I'm telling you, there is so much room for private industry in this measure. I've spoken to the staff, I've spoken to the head leadership, I've spoken to the people involved in implementing, I've spoken to the city council, the city attorney. There is nothing in this bill that is going to curtail my ability to do business. In fact, it's going to help me channel millions more dollars into this. When I can match DWP bonds, we can bring you hundreds of millions of dollars to match it. It's going to drop the scale of solar tremendously, and it's the first step in taking our energy future into our own hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Granada Hills South Neighborhood Council, somebody? If you'll just state your name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Alexia Serino. Thank you for hearing me today. I'm on the Neighborhood Council, Granada Hills South, and I was the maker of the motion in January for the DWP MOU resolution against Measure B. Since that time, I have researched it significantly, and in our last meeting last Thursday, I asked that we can reconsider Measure B, our opposition to Measure B. Because there are just, well, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of confusion out there, and I don't really believe that we should be against it. My goal there was to at least say, you know, we're not for or against, and people should investigate for themselves and see for themselves. I've looked into it more, and I actually am going to vote pro for Measure B. But so I had asked the Neighborhood Council to reconsider, and it came close. We had about two people voted more against reconsidering than I would have liked, so we didn't get to reconsider. But I wanted you all to know that that as the maker of the motion, I wish that I had done a little more research in advance, and I've learned a lot. And that I wish that Measure B would have a lot more support, and I guess that's it right now.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Alexia. Appreciate your comments today. Zuma Dog is our last speaker for general public comment. Good morning, Mr. Dog.
Yes, barely made it. Traffic's just a real nightmare on the 101. I'd like to say, yes, my name's Zuma Dog, in case you're tuning in for the first time. Yes, this is what I look like without the hat and glasses. You know, I've come here over the past 3 years, you know, as a private citizen on my time to give my public comments, so I, you know, chose to appear the way I want. But now I'm a candidate for mayor, and I'm asking for the vote of Los Angeles residents and the support of City Council. I think the taxpayers like to see what they're getting. And also, City Council, I was on Good Day LA, and I'm not trying to sit here and promote. I'd really urge you and implore you to please check me out. I won't even say the website. You know how to get to my blog. Please look at the videos. I really addressed the situation. You know, it's a good spin. I'll be on KNBC today, KNBC News Raw, and it's going to be on the High Def channel. Now, let me spend some time talking about why I'm running for mayor. I've woken up basically every day for the past 3 years and come down here to try to basically be a backseat driver to try to get leverage and control over the fraud, waste, abuse, waste of taxpayer money, corruption, racketeering. Okay, and I came here and I've done as much as I can to alert the public and to try to put things on record. And so as it came time to put my name, whether to run for mayor or not, I said, how could I continue to come here and be a public comment speaker if I don't try to do as much as I can to get on top of the situation? And so after coming, I decided to put my name on the ballot. There seems to be a wave of support. I really think I'll come in number 2, whether it could force a runoff. You know, I don't know if it's going to be 6%, 10%, 20%. We could be looking at a runoff. Put Zuma Dog in office because, first of all, I have a 14-point plan based on Dr. W. Edwards Deming, which will address the waste, the immeasurable waste, things that have to be done 2, 3, 4 times. It triples, quadruples the expense and the time it takes to get things done. I'm running out of time. Go to ZumaTimes.com for more, and I'm asking for your vote March 3rd, Zuma Dog for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That will close our general public comment. We've been asked to take up item 11 out of order. I know we have a number of guests that are here, and Mr. Alarcon called that special as well, so I'd like to recognize Mr. Alarcon and take item number 11. I know we have some cards, and Mr. Alarcon asked if we could reopen public comment on this. We have a single card on this one. Mr. Alarcon? We have item 11 before us? We have one public comment card, which you'd have to reopen. Did you want to reopen it for the comment? Okay. So without objection, Arnold Sachs, if you'd like to come forward on item number 11.
Yes, good morning. Just very quickly on this item, why specifically one council district? Why not a citywide foreclosure prevention strategy? It's just as simple as that. Is this a pilot? I guess it is a pilot program, but is the foreclosure rate so much higher in this district that it was chosen? How exactly was this district chosen out of the 15 that make up the city of LA? Just some simple questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Do you have any other folks who'd like to speak on this item? If could you give us your name, please?
Good morning. I'm Yvonne Maria Jimenez. I'm the Deputy Director of Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County, an institutional member of 1LA IAF. We have a delegation of 1LA institutional members here this morning, and I would like for them to stand so that we could recognize the institutions that are present here today. 1LA IAF is very pleased that this matter has moved so quickly to the City Council. The City of Los Angeles needs a foreclosure prevention plan. My colleague, Stephanie Hafner, is going to address the 1LA proposal in more detail. But let us be clear. This is a demonstration project. It will enjoin the city in a project to prevent foreclosures and to demonstrate to banks and investors alike that reducing principal will help families who can't afford home ownership stay in their homes. We believe that this demonstration project will be successful, and it will serve to force the federal government to fund this model at a larger scale that is needed in the city of Los Angeles to address our foreclosure crisis.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Hafner. I'm the supervisor of the Housing and Consumer Unit for Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County, working with 1LA IAF to develop solutions to prevent foreclosures. I will address two matters. First, as of now, loan modifications to prevent foreclosure are not happening in any significant way in our communities. And second, the City of Los Angeles has an opportunity now to demonstrate solutions that will work. As to the first, in the past 3 months, we have matched over 100 borrowers with 5 banks servicing their loans: Chase, Washington Mutual, EMC, Wells Fargo, ASC, and Countrywide. To date, half of our borrowers are still in process with no answer, even though they started this process months ago. Where there is an answer, half of the answers are no. In talking with banks about those no's, a large portion of those no's we have learned are erroneous, and they've had to agree to go back and do it again. The most common modification that is being offered is not going to be sustainable long term because the payment will increase for several $100s in 5 years or less when the loan shifts from interest only to fully amortized with principal and interest paid. Only 8% of our borrowers, a very small portion, have been offered loan modifications that are sustainable for them for the long term, with low payments that they can afford over time. Currently, as you can see, there is chaos. We have an opportunity to demonstrate a more orderly solution that will work and will serve the interests of borrowers, the community, and banks and investors by preventing costly foreclosures. This solution, the city has an opportunity to demonstrate this will work by supporting an equity participation soft second mortgage. It will be contingent on modification of the loan where the total debt is lowered to current market values.
Thank you. If I can ask you to conclude.
Okay. May I outline?
You have to just finish that sentence if you can. Thanks.
Okay.
We have to keep it to 2 minutes per speaker, and you took a minute from the last one. Thank you.
With this equity participation soft second, the city can afford a sustainable, affordable payment for the borrower, and we will have a shovel-ready solution to leverage federal support to fund foreclosure prevention on a scale that is needed for the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Our next speaker is in Van Nuys, Matt Dowd.
Yeah, thanks for opening public comment. This is a good one. See, the main point here is that we started talking about this 18 months ago Zuma Dog, you can look it up on his blog too, and I'm not meaning to promote or anything, it's just the fact that we pointed this stuff out 18 months ago, and now you have a foreclosure prevention strategy. See, all the foreclosures, most of them already happened. Everything's already in chaos, and Arnold Sachs is making a great point too. This is only a Council District 7 initiative, and then Part 3, it says that, they're going to administer federal funds, related to the Council District 7. So how come Council District 7 gets the federal funds for this? So that's a good point. There's a lot of things in here. We've got to identify $1.5 million in funding for this prevention pilot program. So there's a lot of things I'd be looking for the answers to right now, because, Richard Alarcon, he's not in my good books at all right now.
Our next speaker is Zuma Dog here in Council Chambers.
Yes, thank you to Mr. Dowd for noting that on May 7th, 2007, 6 months before it hit the first newspaper headline, Zuma Dog appeared at this podium to warn council that the subprime foreclosure crisis would be triggering a recession that would be causing a massive economic crisis that the city, state, and country has never seen before. And it was with shocking specificity. I can't even believe we're in the situation. And every council member here knows I had come here relentlessly and warned you about the measures that must be taken. So now let's talk about so first of all, I want you to pay attention, because my words have tremendous credibility, because it's all been blogged publicly for the record and on the record here. So as candidate for mayor, first of all, I'd like to make sure that the money earmarked for the community under these harsh economic times makes it into the community. If I ever have a chance to get in the media, one of the top two things I'll say is that there's federal and state money earmarked to provide services into these low economic communities hit hardest by these foreclosures. City council squanders it and wastes it. It ends up going into shill things, high front-end load management contracts. So I'm here to say we've had enough, and you'll see at the polls that the voters have had enough when I pull a huge share. So make sure that money makes it into the community, and audits will be coming. No more subsidies for these billionaire developers. The Grand Avenue project with the Arab Emirates of Dubai, all the CRA money is like bankrolled and shaken like the roll of a Vegas dice. And I'm here to tell you all that money for this project that you should be collecting the $250,000 a month late fee. First of all, collect that fee that they're trying to weasel out of and put it into this foreclosure plan, because you took all the CRA money, put it into Grand Avenue project instead of into these communities, and now you're waiving a $250,000 a month fee. Take that money, put it into this program for one Zuma Dog and Alarcon on the same side.
Thank you, Mr. Dog. Hef the Great is our last speaker out in Van Nuys.
Hey, good morning again. I'm looking at this housing community thing, and I keep hearing everybody talk about how they're foreclosures and all this, but you got some people who are rained out right now. And so just if your house is getting foreclosed, you should be grateful, because some folks ain't even got a house right now to go to, because we got these people who are running our city that are making these deals with other people who we're not seeing any of this cash on the streets. We need some representation that's going to sit here in the city of Los Angeles and say, I'm going to take care of the people who really mean something to the city of Los Angeles. All y'all that got this money, these and big cars, big houses, heck, y'all cool. It's the ones who really are putting the city on their backs and toting L.A. right now, and then y'all taking our money and just doing what you want to do with it. I think that's really unfair to the people who really have to work hard for their monies, So you got some $1.5 million. We're never going to see this on the street. We need somebody that's going to represent the people of Los Angeles. That's Zuma Dog.
All right. That will close our reopened public comment. Mr. Alarcon?
Members, this is a unique opportunity for us to send a demonstration project and a message to the federal government that we do need to reinvest in the existing home ownership. There is a value in somebody owning their home, and when they lose it, it can have a disastrous and long-term effect, not just on the family, but on the community. When we see the high concentrations of foreclosures in particularly Council District 8, in my district, but throughout the city of Los Angeles, even in the wealthier communities, we are seeing the potential for deterioration of neighborhoods. When we talk about stabilizing neighborhoods, this is a program that will focus on that. It's not quite ready for prime time, but what this action will do will give Housing Department the opportunity to fill in the blanks, particularly with regard to how we designate the area, because we do want to demonstrate a stabilizing effect of a neighborhood, and secondly, in terms of how exactly we use the money. I do want to say that not every community has this opportunity. Because of the community redevelopment project in my area, we are able to identify some funds that are available to do this, but not every area has community redevelopment funds. So we are monitoring the actions of President Obama and the stimulus package, and hopefully next Wednesday we'll have a better idea of what will emerge from that package. But we're thinking that this model may be something that can team up with the efforts that the President will put in place. So with that, I ask for your support. There will be a report back in committee in 30 days with the identification of money and the design of the program. A couple of key things are important. Number one, the banks in this scenario must agree to reduce the debt to the current appraised value. That is not an easy task, and it's not something that we are clear can occur. But it is something that we should challenge them to do, and with pressure from the federal government, from the President specifically, we think there may be greater opportunity for that to happen. Secondly, we are buying an equity share, if anything, and that means that we will be a part owner of the house, and so we're not throwing money away. It may take some time before we get it back, but in the event of any transaction to resell that property, we should receive that money back. So it is not throwing good money after bad, as was said of a similar proposal that I introduced a year and a half ago. And yes, Zuma Dog, every once in a while, even a blind squirrel finds a nut. So with that, members, I would ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Mr. Huizar.
Was that Mr. Huizar? Thank you very much. And Mr. Alarcon, I want to thank you for putting this forward. I think this is a valiant effort to do something about the many families who are hurting in CD7, and the fact that we could look at this hopefully as a model of what we can do for the rest of the city is exactly what we would want to be doing. And folks, you have some information also in item number 9, another item that was forwarded by myself and Mr. Alarcon, which will make 2 more specific recommendations who are incorporated in Mr. Alarcon's proposed pilot in his district. And in item number 9 today, we're recommending that we look at refinancing assistance up to $5,000 for low and moderate income families so that they can save their homes. And secondly, to create a soft second loan program to help low and moderate income families qualify for refinancing. A lot of what we have to do is do the pre-foreclosure and assist the families before they foreclose and not wait till afterwards. I understand that tomorrow President Obama is going to give a lot more details as to his plans to help families who are facing disclosure. And in early February, the Treasury Department actually asked that, or they intend to use $50 billion of the federal bailout money for foreclosure prevention. Item number 9 also asks us to be prepared for that. It's asking the Housing Department to say, let's not wait to see if this money comes here, but it's asking, put something together so when this money gets here, we immediately put it to use. And as was stated by Mr. Alarcon, there are many families who are hurting out there, and if you think about it, one of the most basic tenets in the way we can help families is to provide a roof over their head, because that is, after all, the American dream. And as he also so eloquently stated, this is not only about helping those families who got themselves into this situation, this is about helping neighborhoods. If you stabilize 1 or 2 or 3 foreclosed properties in a neighborhood, it goes a long way to stabilizing a neighborhood and not have boarded up homes in any neighborhood. So, Mr. Alarcon, kudos to you, and I think we all need to do our homework now so the event or when the federal money does get here, we are ready to use it once it arrives. Thank you.
Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Alarcon and Mr. Huizar, for both of your motions and for pushing forward with innovative local solutions into the community, and the folks from 1LA and IAF who have done an exemplary job of showing how we don't have to cede the power that we have here locally before we try to exercise it. It will be an exciting week to see what the package that comes out of the Obama administration will be. In the meantime, our three-pronged approach here of seeing what we can do directly to forestall home foreclosures, what we can do after we have foreclosures to get people back into them through the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which was unfortunately cut pretty dramatically in the Senate version of the recovery package, but was partially reinstated. And then lastly, to make sure that people get that help early on before they get to the point of foreclosure. And just to share with you statistics, colleagues, the hotline that we set up just around the time that Mr. Zuma-Dog was talking about home foreclosures, we actually have served over 50,000 people on that hotline. Estimated about 10,000 people have probably been kept in their homes because of that, because we got out early in 2007 with that. That said, we still have a daunting number of resets next month. And so this couldn't come at a better time because those adjustable rate mortgages, which will reset again in March, are going to have another slew of home foreclosures. And really whatever we can do when we hear tomorrow, I think there will be the most important part of that package will be trying to pay down or reset some of the principal on the loans. And that will be critical for the success of keeping many people still in their homes and even getting people back in by revaluing homes at the value they actually are at today. It's in the bank's interest to do so. It certainly is in our community's interest to do so. So in the meantime, you have my full support for this program, Mr. Alarcon. The question was asked where this federal money comes from. It's not federal money. It's actually local community redevelopment money, local taxes being reinvested locally, which is the best vision of community redevelopment. So with that, I hope that we'll all pass this and also continue to let folks know they can call our housing department directly. If you're close to foreclosure, do not give up, but reach out now. Don't wait a couple months because then it's too late. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. I want to thank my colleagues for bringing up this issue and highlighting its need and the dire conditions in which our families are living in right now. And I want to ask Mercedes Marquez, who might come to the table. I do have a couple of questions, colleagues, and it really is about understanding what this model has to offer. And I agree, when you look at the map and you see the number of foreclosures, certain parts of the valley seem to be hit the hardest in terms of numbers. At least that's the impression I get. But the question I have is about stock, the type of buildings. My assumptions are that in certain areas you have more apartments that are going through foreclosures than you would have 2 or 3 bedroom or 1 or 2 bedroom type homes. Would this demonstration program allow us to learn in terms of what it would take to address not only homes, the 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 2-car garage type homes, but apartments that are impacting families that are also being foreclosed upon? Do you feel that we have enough of a variety, if you will, of types of buildings so we can learn from this demonstration and figure out how to apply it citywide? Please hold my time.
Good morning. Councilman, that's a great question, and it all depends ultimately on what kind of dollars are allowed to be used. Let me, for just a moment. We have an issue. The federal dollars for this neighborhood stabilization program are very specific. The $33 million that we're going to receive shortly have clear limitations. They may only be used for properties, whether they're multifamily or single family, that have already been foreclosed on. We cannot use CDBG dollars under the current law or even home dollars to help anybody other than a first-time home buyer. So, for instance, the program that Mr. Huizar is talking about for helping folks with a $5,000 help down payment and pay for cost cannot currently be paid by CDBG or home dollars. It is very clearly prohibited. So what we're going to have to wait and see is that the new dollars that are being signed today in the stimulus package, Councilman Garcetti was correct, they put back $2 billion. That may be more broadly available. and I'm certainly speaking, and I know many of others of you are as well, to give us more flexibility to actually help homeowners that are currently in homes. Because the regular CDBG rules do not permit it, the home rules do not permit it, and the first NSP program does not permit it. So we need the second bit of money to be more flexible to do that. But to your question about multifamily properties, for the current neighborhood stabilization program, the $33 million that is about to arrive, it can be used for multifamily property that is already foreclosed on. And in fact, we already have a strategy to help us purchase those and do scattered site rehab of those properties. In addition to that, there is a lot of money in the state that they received from the first NSP program that was not distributed. They hold 25% of it for use of families at 50% or below of AMI. Our plan is to apply for that money as a city and use that money for renters, so that not only will we use some of the $33 million, but we will compete for other money at the state level to specifically for renters, most specifically focused on buildings that are under rent control, to see if we can't save them and put them on an affordable long-term plan. So we have a very good plan for that, and so we'll be dealing with that. But the issue of helping an owner that is currently an owner of property but could be foreclosed on, much more difficult at the moment.
So when you look at the volume of structures and or property owners who would fall in that second category that you described, do we have a ballpark figure of that volume?
Yes, in fact, the numbers are holding fairly steady. About 1/3 of the foreclosures that the city is experiencing, as of the third quarter, we were at 18,000. Nearly 6,000 of those were multifamily units. And they are, given their age and where they are, they're in mainly South Los Angeles. About 96% of them are under rent stabilization and are occupied. The vast majority are occupied. So we have families who don't know who to pay their rent to. So that's why we focused on creating a financing program that would focus in on those multifamily properties so we can save as many of them as we can.
In the spirit of trying to be as prepared as we can be, and if Councilman Alarcon is amenable to this, would it behoove us to have another geographic area that would function as a demonstration program so that we can capture the spectrum of types of buildings that we need to address?
Well,
if there wasn't enough in that particular
Well, I
district?
guess my comment would be this. First, what Councilman Alarcon and the community have envisioned is something that can only be done with non-federal dollars, right? Because CDBG does not permit it and home does not permit it. And so it has to come from the city's dollars, whether it's general fund or it's redevelopment dollars, are the only dollars that can be used
Couldn't
right
we
now.
ask the banks to cooperate too? They're not federal dollars. Please hold my time.
Well, the question is this. What is in the pilot program for CD7 requires first that the banks actually pull back the capital amount of the loan so that it reflects its actual value. So, for instance, if a family bought a home for $450,000, but now it is appraised at $250,000, right? The bank would have to actually let go of $200,000 of a loan value and redo it. Then, if they do that, but that's voluntary at this point, right? The federal government has not acted any differently. At this point, if that happens, we would then be assessing the individual family with CRA dollars, and if they still, given their incomes, did not qualify for a new $250,000 loan, that is where a soft second would come in to help them at the new level. I don't think that right now that would help a lot for multifamily properties, because we'd have to find, right, the banks would also have to drop that. I would give it some time because we are working on a plan to outright purchase some of those with NSP.
When are we going to find out from the banks if they're going to cooperate?
I believe that within the next month you will see movement, and I believe it is for this reason. When the federal government now unveils this week what is in the stimulus bill in terms of what the requirements will be with banks, and whether or not the president is going to lend his support to what they're calling the bankruptcy issues, right, which would allow bankruptcy judges now to make individual decisions about mortgages in a family bankruptcy. This is what I believe we're going to see. There is a certain level of threshold. If a bank drops X percentage of what is owed, so let's say if it's a $450,000 loan and they drop $100,000 of it, right? Where does that put the family that is in that home? A threshold will be set. If a threshold is then set that is above what families can afford, the federal government has to decide. Will they take extra steps, or will they let everybody that falls below that threshold go into foreclosure? If they also pass a bankruptcy provision, what I believe will happen is that the threshold will actually drop, because lenders are now in a situation where they cannot predict what individual bankruptcy judges will do in individual cases. So my sense is that overall an industry standard on threshold will be set. It depends on what tools the federal government decides to push on. And once a threshold is set, and I think this is going to happen within the next month, we'll get the first sense of it, we'll know how far people are willing to fall, right? Will the federal government allow you to fall if you're a family, right, at $400,000 of income, at $300,000 of income, at $100,000 of income, at $50,000 of income? This is an issue of the entire market. We cannot know right now, but in a month, I'll be happy to come back and we'll talk about what has balanced out. We just don't know right now.
But I do believe that this city generates about $4 billion, and banks are holding our money. Banks are making money off our money. Yet these are the same banks who we are waiting for to bring down that principle because of the fact that everything's devalued. And we're waiting for them to decide when they will do that, when they make money off of our tax dollars as well.
Well, yes, that's true. But let me also say this. We're in a position that other cities would love to be in, right? If you would go into the Rust Belt of this country, there is absolutely no housing market at all, right? Their values have dropped in the area of 80%, completely wiped out. In Los Angeles, we have a housing market. And that makes it a little bit more difficult because the banks understand that there is value. So it is not their first move, their second move, or their third move to want to forgive principal because they believe that over time they will make up some of those losses and property values will rise again.
But it was our tax dollars. We pumped millions of dollars in new parks, new police stations, new fire stations. We repaid the roads. Those properties went up in value because of our tax dollars as well. That has to be weighed into the discussion, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And if the council were to take local action as it relates to how we invest city dollars in lending institutions, you may have local leverage can be created there. But other than looking at what local leverage we have, we really are working in partnership with the federal government to understand where the thresholds would be. Because, for instance, they could agree to have a bank, push a bank to drop a certain percentage of the principal. But they could also say, we'll have some interest write down. They could also say, in addition to that, we'll extend the terms of a mortgage from 30 years to 40 years. Because studies show that working families stay in their homes as long as they can afford the monthly payment. So banks are looking at this not just as a principal write-down, but as a monthly payment issue. And you can lower monthly payments by dropping principal, dropping interest, and extending the terms of the loans. And that is what in the next month to 6 months we're going to understand. What will that formula be? When we have a threshold that starts to apply locally, then we will have a formula to plug in and we'll understand where we are. We just don't right now.
Are we in a position as a city council, and it's rather rhetorical, but I need to ask this. If we brought the 4 leading bank officials that make the most money off the city and asked them here, what are you doing to help our citizenry so your bank and our city can be healthier the next few months? Is that even conceivable?
Certainly.
colleagues, I would ask if that would be an action that we should take as an institution. And I'm not seeing too many people paying attention, but I'm asking you as a verbal motion that we invite the executives of the biggest banks in our city to talk to us about what they're doing about this foreclosure issue and what's the direction of the policy of their banks in light of the crisis of our citizenry. Can you second that? If we can have that, we can ask the CLA and the CAO to ask these executives to present to us what is their vision for the city. How do they see leveraging the profits they are making from these incredible payments that right now is driving half of the city into bankruptcy and foreclosure? We as a city, through our block grant programs, our state programs, have pumped millions and millions and millions of dollars into their infrastructure that's created a higher value for their structures. Now's the time for us to think about the human beings, the people that are living in these buildings who are not being thrown out. I think it behooves us to ask them face to face, what is their policy? How are they using the bailout funds? And how do they foresee our city working with them so that we do not become like the Rust Belt, so that we avoid the kind of pressures that other parts of the country are facing?
Thank
so
you,
I
Mr.
did
Reyes.
get a second from Councilmember Grewal.
Yep.
Could we follow up, Council President, with perhaps a presentation by these bank officials?
Sure, we'd be happy to.
Okay,
Whatever.
now, I guess after the break, it's something we can look towards to.
Sure.
We'll have more information on that
Yeah,
regard.
we can reach out. And I know the housing department's in contact with them, so we can work with them.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Council
Thank you.
President. Thank you, colleagues.
You bet. Ms. Grewal is next, then Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the 1LA people who are here today because Maria Jimenez came to speak to me and others about the importance of this issue, and particularly the people that you all were dealing with in the legal aid community, those in which they wanted to be able to stay in their home. The values of their homes had degraded so much that they could not afford anymore to pay their mortgage, and the only way they could get in a bank to engage with them is if they didn't pay their mortgage. And for many people, they're proud of their ability and don't want to have the only way that someone will talk to them is if they don't pay. And the insurance of that they have paid their bills and have done that for many, many years. And so I just want to thank you because you have met, I know, with many colleagues. Based on our discussion, I have talked to several of the banks and indicated to them they have to step up to the plate to be able to address some of these issues. Because as much as we'll have a program that has funding, hopefully we'll find that funding wherever it may be. And I know Mr. Alarcon has the largest. I think I'm the 6th largest in the city as far as the number of home ownership, of those that are facing foreclosure. But we see this all over the city of Los Angeles, and as well as the multifamily that is so important to us to be able to keep these homes. So, and with the money we hopefully get from the federal government, that it will be like some of the funds we've gotten before, as we did in the Northridge earthquake, which go through the existing funnels of programs with some exceptions. Because I think, as you mentioned, Ms. Marquez, the importance of having a few waivers to address some of these issues that otherwise would not be eligible under CDBG, those that are coming formula-driven. But I think it is incumbent upon us to talk to the banks, as discussed, develop our own program where it is needed most in those parts of the city of Los Angeles, and 3, to ensure that the funds we're getting for economic stimulus are going to those people that need them desperately. Because we have all had our individual conversations with people who are losing their homes or lost their homes, and it's devastating to them, not only for their own credit rating in the future, but more importantly, it's for their lives and their children that are impacted by that. And so this is important, and thank you to many of my colleagues who have been working on this, and that chair of the Housing Committee, Mr. Wesson, and others. This, unfortunately, is not an issue that will go away tomorrow. It's something we're going to be dealing with for, I think, months and years to come, and that we have to look at every potential program. So we look forward. I think the report back is in 30 days. Is that correct? Okay. And if there are banks or others that are not being responsive or assistance in the federal government that we need to get to be able to access these funds as quickly as possible. And a special plug, I'm over, I know, I have 3 seconds, but a special plug to remind people that there are individuals out there who are trying to take advantage of you. Call the Neighborhood Legal Services, Beth Sedek, all the other programs that are out there, and the Housing Department. Many people who say, I can make your troubles go away and provide you a miracle, usually it's not true. And so we encourage you to call those who actually know how to handle this, but also not be afraid to call your bank. I went to an opening the other day where they were putting together a program where banks are saying they're having a hard time because people don't want to return their phone calls. There's nothing worse than being the recipient of a phone call that says you haven't paid your bill and just wanting to avoid it. Don't avoid it. Step up. There are programs out there that we can help work with you, and hopefully the City of Los Angeles additionally will use some of those dollars we have to be able to assist people who are facing foreclosure. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. LeBon is our next speaker.
Thank you. As I asked the City Treasurer, Joy DeFore, to join at the table, members, what I would love to have in the future, and I don't know who to talk to, Mr. President, but if we had IT, that's technology capabilities, I would love to see maps, graphs right now, instead of our names up on that board, some kind of information so we see the depth that many people are faced throughout the city. I'd also like to get an
Just
update
on that point, Mr. LeBon, do you have Ms. Marquez, do you have the map that you handed out in committee here by any chance to show Mr. LeBon?
Not today, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you have anybody who could run over? Because I'd like to see it by this afternoon. Okay, I think we all should see this. This is a critical thing. I think information is knowledge is power. And the more we understand the challenges throughout the city, the better we'll be able to be.
The maps are actually in each of you.
I need one today, so if you could bring me one today, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Joy, some of these questions here, how many banks do we do business with in Los Angeles?
Good morning, Mr. President, members of City Council. Council Member LeBon, approximately, in total, 12, I believe.
12. And are any of them located? Because I know a lot of banks are like in North Carolina and other places here. So
it's hard to know. It is difficult. I would agree with my colleague to know where they're located, but there are 7 that are actually located here.
Right.
Most of those are smaller banks.
Anna, could you hold my time?
Most of those are smaller banks that we're using for the CDARS program, which is a way to place city funds in small neighborhood banks, so to promote borrowing and lending activities.
Right. And you've obviously been working with banks. We just changed from Bank of America
to Wells Fargo and Wachovia. They are now the same bank.
Right. Now, why did we do that?
Well, we went through a competitive bid process. We wanted to see the best practices employed at the city, how we could leverage technology to reduce some of our banking costs so it wouldn't be further expenditure on the general fund. And we wanted a bank that truly wanted to be our partner in promoting best practices within the city.
Right. So do you have a suggestion? I know Mr. Reyes asked to call everybody over here, but you have a relationship daily. You probably talk to some of the representatives of the banks.
I do.
How could they help us in this effort here? And I know every bank that I've walked into recently, I've been met by somebody at the door asking how I could help you, which is different than all the times that before, which is they're changing their way, which is a positive.
Well, fortunately for the banks that we are transitioning to, they monitor the City Council, and they were aware of the motion that was made about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And they sent over immediately a one-sheet sort of fact sheet on what they're doing to assist in the mortgage crises. And I'm sorry I don't have that with me, but I'll be happy to get it up to council.
I just think it's a very important suggestion that Mr. Reyes made, just to get the right questions. They're not, and everybody I think in this country is not totally sure what tomorrow absolutely will bring based on the changes and the struggles that the new administration has. Finally, we're there in seeing some change take place there. So I welcome the opportunity Will it go back to committee, or how will we, what's our plan? Do we know, Mr. President or Mr. Clerk, what is our, on the motion of Mr. Reyes, is that separate?
It's separate motion. We have 30 days that they're going to be reporting back on Mr. Alacon's program, and in that time we'll try to schedule something on Mr. Reyes' motion.
Great. So I think it's real important opportunity, because I think everybody's in it together. One day somebody may gobble up all those banks and they won't even be in the confines of the United States, and that's the tougher to get them to come testify at 200 North Spring. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cardenas.
Just looking forward to seeing this report, just end debate.
Okay, with the previous question. Mr. Huizar, you want to take up 9 right after then?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
okay.
fine. I was going to add number 9.
All right, is there any objection to moving the previous question? Mr. Parks has an objection, so that requires a vote.
Saying close off debate?
Yeah, there was a move to move the previous question.
I'll ask the question.
Okay, and number 9 is coming up on home foreclosures in a second as well. Okay, please open the roll then on the item. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. Thank you all very much, and we'll take up item number 9. You may want to stick around for. So, Mr. Huizar on item number 9.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And again, I won't take up too much time. Again, a lot has been said about the need for the city to do more in terms of saving people from foreclosure. But again, I want to remind everyone that what this motion does is ask that we start preparing a plan in the event that more federal money does come in, so that we do one of two things. One is possibly provide refinancing assistance up to $5,000 for low and moderate income families. And this is even more important because just today there was a newspaper article that says that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are raising their fees for people to refinance. So two things are happening opposite each other, where we're having more foreclosures. People would want to refinance but cannot come up with the fees, and Fannie Mae and Fannie Mac are raising their fees. So that's even more important that we help people refinance if they so choose. And secondly, to possibly create a soft second. And again, President Obama is expected to announce tomorrow more details on how he hopes, or how the country hopes, to help people who are in foreclosure. He's going to make the announcement in Phoenix tomorrow, one of the most hardest hit cities in the United States with this foreclosure issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to ask Mercedes, you made a comment early in your comments about the issue of the federal government hasn't altered their plans, although they're imposing different rules on private industry. How do we go about, and I'm assuming you're talking about 108 loans and things of that nature, and others that we deal with, how do we go about changing or at least addressing or bringing that policy forward? Because if I understand it, many of the monies that we put forward to small businesses to help them get created are now suffering because they can't pay their loans back. So we have all that job creation that now falls on top of the issue of unemployment. And I'm just wondering, how do we get into the discussion about those types of federal or government loans?
My sense is that with the $2 billion that was included in the stimulus package, that is Neighborhood Stabilization Program 2, right? That the language seems to be more broadly written to allow for some different things. I certainly expect, I can tell you, that I meet with a group of 5 housing directors for the 5 high-cost cities in the country. So the cities of New York, Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco work together on policies that very specifically affect high-cost markets. We have already taken up this question about what it is we should be recommending to the Housing and Urban Development Department in Washington about that money. How is it that it could be more broadly written to permit us, for instance, to do some of the things that are included in Councilman Huizar's motion? Right now, we could not use that dollars. So we would have to use CRA dollars, use other money. It would be an issue in the budget, frankly, to carve out the kind of money that could do that when federal dollars can't. The other dollars to be looked at, I think, are not traditionally looked at for this purpose. But the federal stimulus also has about $1.5 billion in ESG that is usually used for homeless. But it seems to be a little bit more broadly written so that it may be used as homelessness prevention. So we may be able to take a look at that to help families that are in to keep them in. So we're going to be studying those very carefully. I can tell you that I am aggressively, along with these other cities, taking a look. We're planning to go in March as 5 cities to look at this. We're speaking already to Councilman Garcetti about this. We're speaking to the mayor's office about all moving together. I've also actually spoken with your staff as well as Councilwoman Perry's staff about this so that we take the right position to help us have some flexibility, because without it, we're just not going to be able to very effectively deal with the problem.
Is it our expectation what gets approved as a stimulus package is in concrete, or is it something that could be moved or changed in process, or are we looking for the next generation of stimulus if that should come about?
No, I believe that the $2 billion in NSP 2 in this stimulus package can be worked on. It is more broadly written. The first one was quite directive in the statute about what HUD can do. So that was clearly outlined. This one is more broadly done, and so I think that HUD will have more flexibility now that they have a new secretary. They're permitting him more flexibility in outlining the programs. I think we can be helpful there. The issue of what the president does when they're talking about the $50 billion in TARP funds, I don't believe that it's likely that that is money that flows to government. I think that's money that will be worked on with lending institutions about how it is that they will write down principal. I don't think that's money we will see, but they are actions that will favorably affect us as it comes down.
In March, we have the National League of Cities. Is it something that we should be taking to their evaluation to bring about for discussion?
Yes, both the National League of Cities and the U.S. Conference of Mayors are discussing it, and I believe that it's something you would very much want to do, and we would be very happy to share with you the specific analysis that we're doing to try to help us out.
If we brought something there as a motion so that they could adopt it, if particularly with the sensitivity for Los Angeles, specifically in California in general.
Certainly. I can tell you that I have now spoken at 2 National League of Cities programs about foreclosures. So it seems now each one that comes up, I'm traveling there to talk to cities about what they might do.
Does item 9 give you the platform as it relates to our city lobbyists, as it relates to them assisting you in that regard? Or is it something in addition to that we need to be?
Well, I think that item 9 sets a good direction, so it's very helpful. But we're also, going beyond that. I mean, I'm looking at everything that we could possibly do within the law to help us handle this program. And we're speaking to other cities about some of their best ideas.
What I'm saying is whether the council should take a position on those added issues as opposed to you meeting individually or with a group of other cities. Should we expand upon those issues
certainly.
as a council position?
As we come forward with our views, I would be happy, and in fact I've already been in contact with council members about where we're going, and so I would actually appreciate very much if the council would take a formal position on some of the ideas that we come out with.
Okay.
That would be helpful to us.
Okay. Thank you very much. And let me ask Joya, on the CDOR program, and this is, if I understand, the smaller banks, yes. Or do we know if they have that foreclosure policies in place, or have we talked to them about those issues?
We have not talked specifically to them about those issues, but we have said very clearly during orientation that participation in the program is with the expectation that they will use this for lending activities in the community. But I'll be happy at our next meeting to bring that to their attention. Okay.
I'd just like also, very shortly, we'll have Mr. Alacon's divestiture motion. If you could bring at that committee the information you mentioned where banks have come forward with their written policies so that we could be made aware of that during that committee hearing.
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Alacon.
Members, I hope that we understand that we're sort of playing a game of musical chairs unless we deal with the root causes of the problem. I agree with Zumadog on the issue of foreclosures as a crisis. But long before there was a foreclosure crisis, there was a crisis in Los Angeles that we have allowed our city to become a rental city. The vast majority of people that live in Los Angeles do not own the home that they live in. And as a nation, we are doing the same thing. The crisis that emerged did not emerge because of the foreclosure problem. The crisis occurred because we have a failure of our working class community to have the ability, the assets, and the collateral to be able to generate consumerism. And unless Los Angeles targets as a goal to increase the proportion of home ownership, we're dancing at the party and the band is ready to leave. We are not going to be able to solve this problem unless we create more home ownership, unless we provide the opportunity for more people to have an asset that they can rely on, that they can collateralize and purchase other things. That's the way our society works. We are at a state where 70% of the people that live in a home in Los Angeles are not living in a home that they own. They have no collateral. They can't buy a car. They can't even buy a refrigerator. Yes, we have created this situation before the foreclosure crisis, but what is happening now is we are responding to the foreclosure crisis. We are not responding to the fundamental issues. Now that's why I introduced the divestiture motion, because those are the folks that are forcing people to not have the assets necessary, not have the collateral necessary, because they are making profit off of credit. And until we grapple with that issue, until we use our clout, the $25 billion in investments that we make, they will not come to the table. They don't have to. We always give it up to them. But let's not believe that a $1.5 million program in Pacoima is going to change the problem. Let's not believe that the stimulus package is going to change the problem. What we need to have is a cultural shift in our community that values home ownership as a principle. And we as a city, frankly, do not. If we did, we would not be at 30% home ownership. It used to be the California dream. It used to be the American dream. And unless we grapple with that reality, it's going to continue to be an American nightmare.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon. Ms. Perry is our next speaker, and then Mr. Labange.
Thanks, Mr. President. I just got two questions, and you can give me a report back if you can't answer them today. One is for Mercedes and one is for Joya. What your understanding of the ESG dollars, and they have been added to the budget, I think, as it relates to foreclosures, and let us know, if not today, when you report back the guidelines and when we can expect them from the federal government. And for Joya, again, the CDARS policy, whether that allows for discussion for banks as they're formulating their foreclosure policies to interface with us, the City of Los Angeles, so in the best of all worlds, we could be tracking together and being mutually compatible, or at least complementing our analytical frameworks as opposed to working against each other. And if you could include that in your reports back, that would really be very helpful. Thank you.
Certainly.
Mr. Labange.
If you could get statistical information, I believe in 1930, 90% of the people who lived in Los Angeles were in single-family homes. And if you could do a decade breakdown as far as that has transformed in the city, and I don't know if you have to work with the planning department or whoever, I think that information would be important. I do know, the housing crisis of different eras after World War II caused a larger boom, which transformed much of Los Angeles. But I think it would be information that we would very much like to have, as you could find that. Thank you.
We'll do a historic look back.
There's no other members wishing to speak. Let's go ahead and open the roll on this item. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 1, called special by Councilmember Labange.
Mr. Labange, and we do have cards on this, so should we take those cards first, Mr. Labange, or afterwards?
You want to take the cards first? Thank you.
Okay. Arnold Sachs is our first speaker, and then Matt Dowd and Van Nuys.
Yes, good morning, Arnold Sachs. It certainly would be nice to hear the council's reports first before getting public comments so that we could also take part in that discussion, but I guess that's the part of open and transparent government that's not going to occur. But what I really wanted to talk about is that you have here an increase in basic life support service fees, yet in item number 7, you have a write-off for the LA Fire Department of over $113,000. And with the economy going in the tank and the price going up, do you not expect the write-offs to be higher in the future years? And what will be done to eliminate the write-offs? You're going to spend more. It's going to cost the public more money to get ambulatory aid. What's going to be done on the opposite end to make sure that the people that will need it now, with the economy going in the tank or being in a tank, having the ability to pay for it? It seems like you're going to raise the price, but you're not going to do anything to eliminate the write-offs, and more people are going to use the service than ever before, and so the write-offs will rise in volume and cost.
Mr. Zumadog is our next speaker.
Yes, as somebody who's very concerned about updating fees and all types of things, making things more expensive, here's something I wanted to bring to the attention of the people, and I think it's the most worthy cause. Yes, the emergency response fees will be going up from about $900 to $1,000. I want to bring some of these fees from $14 to $15, from $600 to $700. It's for the advanced life support service response call fee. And I'm here to say that I was overhearing some people, you know, as I'm all around town, one of the firefighter emergency response people and the fire union, head of the union, well, they have a very big concern about going to the, when they go on emergency responses, when they have to go in for an extraction. We talk about police services, and gee, people don't like to talk about more police because they think it immediately means arresting people and locking them up. But the police are going to need to assist the emergency medical services to create safe situations for them to do their jobs.
Thank you. I've been informed that there's nobody in Van Nuys anymore, so that will be the last public speaker. Mr. LaBonge.
Mr. President, I don't see any representatives of the department. I ask this to be continued one day and ask that representatives come here to explain this program.
Okay. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we'll continue that one day. Next item, call special.
Items 4, 5, and 6 were called special by Councilmember Parks.
Mr. Parks, we'll take those up together.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd ask staff to come up, and one of the things we've heard so much gloom and doom about the economic situation throughout the country and the state and generally the city as we're dealing with the budget. Joya and her staff has put together a report that gives us an overview, at least through the end of last calendar year, that gives us an idea of where we are on our investments and much of what was talked about earlier as to who we're investing with. But I think this is one of the bright spots as relates to our financial and economic situation from the Department of Treasury. And Joy, why don't you give us an overview of the most recent information?
Thank you, Council Member. Good morning again. And we'll be happy to address any specific questions, but I'm very happy to report that the S&P has recently reaffirmed the city's AAA rating on its portfolio. As you may recall, the city is the only city in the country that has dual AAA ratings, AAA from Standard & Poor's and a AAA from Moody's. We remain very conservative investors with a focus on credit research. For this reason, we are not in the condition or we haven't suffered the fate of 32 other California jurisdictions who, on the day Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, held Lehman Brothers. And Lehman went bankrupt in September. We haven't held Lehman since January of last year. I will let Mr. Naughtree talk a little bit about the specific performance numbers. I think it's significant that we used to receive a lot of calls from outside professional investors. Well, we've actually outperformed them this year, and I'm very proud of my staff and pleased with the work that they've done. And Hal, if you can give us some specifics,
Joy,
please.
before you go to that, why don't you explain to the public and the council what the importance of the AAA rating is?
Okay, the AAA relates to credit quality, and each of Moody's and Standard & Poor's also has a volatility or risk rating. We also have the best rating in that regard. What the AAA will allow us to do is look at some investment opportunities where we can actually contract in investments of other jurisdictions or other pension plans, for instance, because we have the dual AAA. It attests to the safety and prudence of our investment program.
Hi, Hal Nachtrieb, Chief Investment Officer. We've had a lot of success in our investment division in terms of the management of the Treasurer's Pool, which consists of about $5 billion, a little over $5 billion in total assets. We follow a very rigorous investment process to take care of city funds. And during the course of this fiscal year, we've actually been able to generate over $20 million in what we call excess returns, or returns above and beyond the returns of our measured benchmarks. And the investment division is part of the Office of the Treasurer. A lot of that excess return or excess benefit to the city has been achieved through diligent securities research. Joya mentioned that we were able to avoid the pitfalls of owning Lehman Brothers, and that was in large part due to the high quality of our staff within the Office of the Treasurer, as well as the information systems that allow us to assess risk for each of the holdings that we have within our Treasurer's Pool.
One of the things I think is important, I may have the wrong term, bond edge. Explain the investment of the council put into that technology and what the return has been.
Again, it's in no small part to the approval this council gave for the purchase of new technology. It was new for the city. It's something quite common outside the city called Bond Edge. And it's software that helps us look at each investment in our portfolio every single day. So one of the things we did to avoid not only Lehman, but Bear Stearns and a lot of the other names that some of them no longer exist, we look at every day the probability of default. And once that probability of default increases into double digits, we say, why do we need to take that risk? And so Bond Edge has been instrumental in that. It's also allowed us to improve our returns because before Bond Edge, we didn't have the tool to analyze some of these investments that were available legally for us to invest in.
And also comment on your recent reevaluation of your staff and getting Treasury-specific kinds of positions.
Well, thanks to CAO and Personnel Department, after a 3-year discussion, we have identified now positions that are already available and exist in the city that we can use to bring into Treasury that will continue to stabilize Treasury. Some of the challenges we had a few years ago was because of the tremendous turnover and because we needed to bring the personnel up to the level of technology and best practices. We've been able to do that. You know, Hal is one of the prime examples of this council allowing an exemption so I could go out and pick someone who had some very deep experience in the market. In fact, Hal worked for a bank. Hal was the president of the CFA Association in St. Louis. We are looking to do that now with our troops. I think we have a good lock on management now, but now we have to allow that same opportunity and challenge to our actual staff. So they have a career path actually through Treasury, and we can avoid the cost of retraining. We actually did a Department of Labor survey that showed that it cost about 150% of a person's salary once they left for us to train them and bring them back up to productivity.
You have any other comments?
No.
Okay. Let me say thank you very much. And colleagues, this is some good news about finances, and we really are, I think, blessed in the sense of the city to have the team working on how our money is being invested, the return far above not only our benchmarks, but certainly when we look throughout the United States, far above the benchmarks of other cities. And if I understand it again correctly, the AAA rating saves us a ton of money as it relates to when we do actually borrow at some point in addition to money that we're getting back.
Slight clarification there, Council Member. The borrowing rating is different from the investment.
But I think we're at the same level?
It is used as an input into the city's underlying debt rating.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, let's prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Thank you. And very good news indeed. While we mourn that the state has the worst bond rating of any state in the U.S., the city has the highest bond rating of any big city. So it is a silver lining. Thank you all very much for your great work. Please take up the next item, Mr. Clerk.
Item 7 was called special for Councilmember Gruhl.
Ms. Gruhl, number 7.
Great, thank you. Do we have representatives from the department here on this item?
Do we have any representatives?
Anyone from Office of Finance? Or the other departments?
Does not look like we do. Would you like to hold it?
We can hold it. We can continue till tomorrow that they
Sure.
actually come.
What's your preference? Tomorrow?
Probably tomorrow.
All right.
Why don't we do that?
We will make sure that get in contact with Office of Finance, and please hold number 7. Continue that one day till tomorrow, the 18th, without objection. Next item called special, please.
Item 21 called special by Councilmember Cardenas.
Okay, Mr. Cardenas, we have a card from the public. Mr. Zumadag on item 21.
Yes, I'd like to take a minute to mention whenever I see the gang intervention programs, conceptually, I am so for them. We need to help people, especially after they get out of prison and they're trying to rehabilitate themselves and get jobs. I'm concerned, however, about the fraud, waste, and abuse of the money in these programs. And so I'd like council to be especially aware after the budget report we just heard to do everything. Now, see, here's the problem. All of these gang programs, they've all been consolidated under the mayor's office. So all of this gang intervention money, I don't know how much, it's all under the mayor's office. And you have to ask yourself, do you trust the mayor with all of this money? Do you trust the mayor to be in control of all of these gang intervention programs? And I know it's hard for city council to stand up for the mayor because he's retaliatory and vindictive. And if you try to hold him accountable, well, he'll smack you down and say, well, I'm cutting funding in your district. Or he'll run a candidate against you and then you'll lose. And he'll use his whole, this guy, listen, you need to fear Antonio Villaraigosa, ladies and gentlemen. But I need you to stand up to him as council members because we have a huge crisis on the streets. And as the economic crisis gets worse, we're going to have more and more problems. And I'm here to say, if Zumadag is here, one message, very clear. The federal money, the state money, all money that is provided for these gang intervention programs, they go into nonprofits. The city gives this money to nonprofits. I want to see accountability, transparency. I don't care if Laura Chick hasn't run an audit her entire term, and I doubt the next controller will either. I want you as council members to stand up to a vindictive, retaliatory mayor who spent his entire first term in office consolidating all power for these programs under his roof, okay? And now we have to trust him. We don't even know who this money and programs are being operated by. It's under a secret list. You trust the mayor for the money and for a secret list to run these? Council members, stand up to the mayor and support Zumadag for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dog. That is our only public comment on that. Mr. Cardenas.
Yes, Mr. President, we were hoping to have a dialogue with some of the brass at the PD, but they weren't able to make it, so we're going to arrange for them to be here next Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay, so put it over till next Wednesday.
Okay. Without
Yes,
objection, we'll continue that till next Wednesday. Next item, please.
Item 22 called special for cards.
Mr. Sachs on item number 22.
Yes, good morning. Arnold Sachs, item 22. I'm just referring to item 22 where it states the Prop A local transit assistance, PALTA. There's so many different names for Prop A It would just be nice for the public's benefit if it was just called Prop A funding. In this Financial Transportation in the City of Los Angeles report from October 22nd, you have Prop A local returns. You have Prop A regional formula funds. You have Prop A being used for Dash, Commuter Express, City Ride, Charter Bus, and transit facilities. What is PALTA, Local Transit Assistance, Fund 385-94? It would be so much more transparent. Revenue source 3734. Excuse me, because there could be another revenue source. It would be so much more transparent if it just said Prop A, Fund 385-94, Revenue Source 3734. The language that you use to disguise where the money goes is outrageous. It is repetitive in all kinds of city agenda items. When money is transferred from fund to fund, you ask for support for these different propositions, and then you break them down and break them apart. And like I said with the funding for the Dash buses, what is the exact cost and where does the money go?
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. That will close our public comment on item 22. Any members wishing to be heard? Not, let's prepare the roll. And we don't have any other cards on item 22. Would you like to come forward, sir? You can speak on 22 if you just give us your name. Okay. And tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That's one strike, Mr. Dog. All right, next item, please.
Item 23, called special for cards.
All right, that was called special. We have Arthur Hansen on item number 23, and then Clyde Williams will follow.
There's no mention of the financial impact of planting all these trees. For the past 50 years, I've been cutting down trees both as a necessity and trimming trees, and also as a source of income on occasion. My next door neighbor, about 25 years ago, planted 2 little trees, cost him $5. And Mike came over and said, "Art, look, I planted trees." I said, "Mike, you dummy. You look down the street here. Do you see anybody else here with trees in front of their place?" Well, about 10 years ago, Frank Sandoval, who's a superintendent at street lighting from my childhood days, moved in. He paid $6,000 to repair the sidewalk and remove the trees. Now, these trees appear to be like Trojan trees. Unless they're properly placed, they're going to be costing the city millions of dollars in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Plus, we have a problem with water at present. If they're put in, the council should pass restrictions so the trees aren't planted too close to sidewalks or curbs, or it'd probably be cheaper to put in umbrellas in the long run. When it's a Trojan horse, it's a Trojan horse. You guys, we have handicapped people in our district for the 14th. I can't walk the streets because the sidewalks are messed up because of the trees. They go to, it's 5 years waiting. Do we have the money to afford to take the free trees? I don't think so. Not in 15 or 20 years. Not even right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Clyde Williams is our next speaker.
Clyde Williams, CD 14. With your approval, EAD will get $450,000 or equivalent, and Relief will have 2,000 trees. But the street services will have to plant them. Also, Relief was not even known or considered by the Board of Public Works. They didn't even know about it, nor did the Community Forest Advisory Committee know about it. LA Audubon has been requesting Board of Public Works to increase the ratio of replacement trees for those trees that are destroyed by developments. So Street Services says that they can't plant any more trees because nobody will adopt them in the street services. And this goes back to renters don't want to obligate themselves to the trees. And as pointed out, most people in LA are renters rather than owners, and they cannot adopt a tree. We would like to have this issue continued until it's been considered by the Board of Public Works and the Community Forest Advisory Committee. And then have them incorporate participation of the neighborhood councils, which have not been addressed at all by either street services or by the EAD. So coordination, even within the city, no coordination. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, and thank you for those good points. We appreciate them very much. That will close our public comment. Any members wishing to be heard on item 23? If not, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That will be approved. And the two other speaker cards we will submit for folks that had left or over the limit. Next item, please.
Item 24, called special for cards.
All right, that was Mr. Sachs, but he's over the limit as well. We'll make sure we'll put that in the council file. If nobody wishes to be heard on 24 from the council, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 31, called special for cards.
Item 31 before us. I do not have oh, here we go. Clyde Williams. And we'll put Mr. Sachs in the record as well.
Green roofs. 2,500 square feet of green roof. With an equivalent amount of money, you could probably plant, roughly 500 trees, which could provide much more area, like 50 to 60 times more area of heat relief within the city, and would make the city achieve eventually the 1 million trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Colleagues, all this is a grant, and we qualify for the grant, we can move forward, and literally look at City Hall as a case example of what can happen, and it'll be forwarded to the proper committee under Councilman Cardenas to look at those details. But the goal here, colleagues, is that as we go through these experiences of green rooftops, we really want to find out what are the costs associated with this new technology, at least for LA, because in other cities they've been doing it for years, and look at the code books to see how we can make this a rather practical, everyday occurrence, so we can bring down the heat footprint of the city. If we can imagine all the rooftops, or as many as we can, converted to some level of green, we can absorb the heat, generate oxygen, create more relief, and I'm sure that Project Restore will have its role, because I know it played an important role in bringing this building up to code with its historic integrity. So I look forward to working with Mr. Avila, General Services Department, Councilman Cardenas's committee, but more importantly, start learning what are the cost issues associated and how we start penetrating the building and safety code books so that green rooftops become a common occurrence as opposed to an exception. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes, and thank you for your leadership on green roofs over the last few years. With that, if there's no other council members who wish to be heard, let's prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 33, called special by Councilmember Zine.
Mr. Zine, item number 33 is before us.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do we have anyone here to discuss this matter, the impact on the clerk's office, funding, et cetera, for this particular matter, actually 33 and 34? If not, we continue it so we can get some answers to the questions. It relates to the city's position in connection with Assembly Bill 106 to allow people who apply for a driver's license to be registered to vote. The impact on the city, the impact on the county, and the financial aspect of that, since money is
You
tight
want to
everywhere in the
continue
state.
that one day and have the city clerk come?
Pardon me?
tomorrow? You want to continue it one day and we have
If
the
we could,
city clerk
see
come?
the impact and the funding that it would take for that 33 and also for 34.
Okay, we'll get the CLA and city clerk for that as well. The CLA is here. Maybe can answer some of your questions now. Mr. Zion.
Mr. Miller, on this particular matter, the cost factors involved with the driver's license, if someone applies for a license, I also understand it applies to someone who files an income tax return that they'd automatically be registered to vote. The connection between the state and the county, the local jurisdictions, how that mechanism and the funding for that, where that would come from.
Well, Mr. Zion, we actually were not asked to do a report on this particular issue, although the Council supported similar issues in the past. My recollection is that the cost impact to the city is relatively minimal. Any cost I think that would be associated would have to do with voter registration. I think the clerk would have to address that. But
okay, well, this did not go to committee, as I understand, where those questions could be answered. So, Mr. President, if it would be appropriate either to send it to committee for review or to have those folks come here on the council floor, either way. And is there a timeline, since the state's bogged down in the budget, is there a timeline to get this matter resolved on AB 106 and AB 30, since they seem to have other pressing matters occupying their time in Sacramento?
We'll see if we can find out the answers on the timeline.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can continue till tomorrow?
Yeah, let's get,
okay,
we'll
both
continue
33.
today.
Thank
No
you.
problem. Okay. All right. If no objection, we'll continue that one day till tomorrow.
Mr. President, that would be on 33 and 34?
Yes.
Yep, on both of those two. Okay. Next item, please.
Mr. President, there is a special one, and the city attorney will speak to the findings.
Okay. Special one.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the posting of today's agenda, the Board of Public Works awarded a debris removal contract to CST Environmental to clean up the Sayre Fire burn area. Due to the emergency nature of the project and FEMA and state deadlines, immediate action is required to transfer funds, among other actions. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Anybody on the findings? If not, let's go ahead and prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Pursuant to Rule 23, that is now before us. Mr. Alarcon, the maker of the motion on the substance.
Members, this motion is related to the Sayre fire, as indicated by the city attorney. And when the Bureau of Engineering projected costs for the debris removal, they anticipated a cost of somewhere between $7 and $11 million. The actual bid came back at less than $2 million. And where we have approval from FEMA on the plan that we've submitted to them, and we anticipate a full reimbursement up of the FEMA reimburses up to 67%. Am I correct? I'm sorry, 75%, and then the state reimburses up to 18%. So the total reimbursement, if my math is correct, is 93.75%. We set aside $500,000 in CRA AB 1290 money to cover this cost of debris to help with the debris removal process. It appears that if we go through this process as is, with this motion, with FEMA's approval, the net cost of the debris removal will be about $125,000, and that will come out of the CRA AB 1290 funds. So I want to say thank you to the mayor and especially his emergency staff, the Bureau of Engineering in particular, Public Works in general. There are some things that we are working on to ensure that we adhere to the best approach to this, but this motion will set the tone for us to move very quickly to remove the debris, get these people back on the track, and hopefully redevelop the site as quickly as possible so they can get back inside their homes. These people have suffered enormously, and I want to remind you that the City of Los Angeles has no primary responsibility to do this. We did it as a moral obligation to help our neighbors, even though the state has the authority over mobile home parks. And so I can't tell you how appreciative I am, and let me express that as a representative of the 500 families who lost their homes, that I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us in this endeavor. I think this is the right thing to do, and they will be eternally grateful. So I urge your support on this motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alarcon. Mr. Smith and then Mr. Zion.
And Mr. Alarcon, we just had a discussion, and I'm a little concerned because I didn't know you had brought this motion in on this issue. And Mr. Alarcon, there's a problem I hope we can resolve. Richard, the problem with this I hope we can resolve, because I do not want to slow this process down one bit. But the problem is, one, we haven't received a second bid. We've only received one bid from BFI. We have not received the bid which is coming in today from Chiquita Canyon. So we don't know that we've got the best deal or the right deal on the landfill portion of it. And there are some issues yet with Sunshine Canyon, who are threatening to lock us out of the landfill right now, and we wouldn't be able to put this in there in the first place. And then finally, on the toxicity issue, that we want to resolve the issues of how it's done and when it's done, which we just discussed. So, Mr. Alarcon, I think that if you would change the language or accept an amendment to the language that says we'll approve the contract today, but the portion dealing with the landfill is not yet negotiated yet, because we don't have a second bid, and we haven't resolved the issues about when and where they're going to dump the toxic issues that are surrounding the soil there. So if you can find a way to resolve that, I'm fine. If not, I would ask you to put it off till tomorrow till we can resolve those issues, because there's still a bid outstanding on the landfill portion of this, and that's important for us to look at. So if you can remove that dollar amount and say that is yet to be determined, I'm good with the rest of it, because I want to move this forward. I think there's $2 million we talked about. You're giving a contract that includes the removal to a landfill.
No.
We only have one bid on a landfill.
No, that's to the contractor who's removing it. This doesn't make mention of a specific landfill.
Okay, so this contract does not include the cost for the landfilling.
It does include the cost of landfill, but it doesn't.
And we don't know that
It
yet.
doesn't name the landfill.
Okay. But that's the problem. We haven't got the second bid in yet. It comes in today. So we don't know where the landfill is, and we might get a better price. We don't know that yet.
But this doesn't name the landfill.
But you're given a contract that says you're going to landfill it, and $2 million to do that. We may get a better bid, and we shouldn't lock in the contract into that portion.
We're not voting on a contract. We are voting on the allocation
to the company that's going to.
There's no mention of the company. We're only on the debris removal process. We're saying the lowest responsible bid on the landfilling. We recognize your concern, and this does not prohibit us from working with that concern as we move forward. All this does is set the motion for us to move forward as quickly as possible. But it does not lock in a landfill. It does not lock in. It does not lock in an amount. All it says is we're setting aside $2 million. Can you actually go to the we have June Gibson's here, so let's have her.
Yeah, could I have someone from the staff come forward, June?
Yeah.
Hold my time, please. Ms. Gibson, the actions we're taking today is setting aside the money, transferring the money out of the Public Works Trust Fund to cover the cost as we know them today. If that cost is wrong, then we come back and adjust that. But this is not setting in stone an agreement with anybody to do anything.
Wait.
Is that right?
Wait. It's to negotiate with CST Environmental on the debris removal. What I'm saying is it doesn't lock in the landfill.
Okay, yeah, but if you're giving a contract to a company to do it, and they're doing it predicated on that one bid that we got, not on all the issues that are unresolved, I want the flexibility to have those issues resolved before they actually start doing the work.
I understand.
So is that in here? We have flexibility yet to negotiate those issues.
Yes. There is anticipation of the possibility that a change order could be done. We recognize that there is some concern with respect to which landfill is going to be used. That motion does provide a $300,000 contingency, recognizing that if the debris has to be relocated to Chiquita, there is a distance associated with that. So the $300,000 would be more than enough to cover any contingency associated with that.
All right, fine. In that case, we're covered. I'm fine. That's what happens when you rush a motion through and we didn't get a chance to think it out. So, again, Richard, I make my pledge to you. I want to move this as quick as possible. We just have to do it in the right way. And that's my concern. So thank you very much.
Mr. Zine.
Yeah, Richard, I just have one quick question regarding reimbursements. I totally support cleaning up the good endeavor, and I know you championed this from the get-go. Any insurance reimbursement coming from any of the properties, the 500 units, are there any insurance claims that can be used to help offset the cost?
We have, typically on a mobile home park, the insurance that is specific to debris removal amounts to about $500. That money we will try to capture, and we will be going after the insurance companies to get that money. The other insurance money that could theoretically be used for debris removal, we want them to use that to purchase their mobile homes because, frankly, they're underinsured. And so if they apply it to the debris removal, it may affect their ability to purchase another home.
And the property owner who owns all the properties, the people rent the space and the property is owned by an individual?
It includes both the property manager owner and the individual tenants.
So as far as the other claim, if there can be one, we would seek that also?
Trust me, the mayor's office is working with the owner of the property to make sure that we get credit for the reimbursement that they receive from their insurance company. We need that in order to get the full reimbursement from FEMA, because FEMA is going to credit that. So we will be working with the owner. We are working with the owner to identify how much is being reimbursed and how much is being paid for by the owner.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Nobody else has any questions? Let's go ahead then on the special. Please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. Please send that forthwith without objection. Next order of business.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Garcetti requests to be excused April 14th, 15th, and 17th for personal business and October 30th for city business. A motion is required for the 15th and the 17th.
Okay. Ms. Perry moves. Ms. Hahn seconds without objection. We'll go forward.
Councilmember Zine requests to be excused May 1st for personal business. That meets council policy.
Okay. Mr. Zine is excused.
Councilmember Weezer requests to be excused March 3rd for city business. That meets council policy.
Okay. Mr. Weezer is excused.
And Councilmember Elikon requests to be excused March 24th for personal business. That meets council policy.
He is excused as well.
That clears the desk.
Okay. Announcements, colleagues? Any announcements, Mr. Labange?
Yeah, just, Mr. President, item 36. We declared it Leroy Neiman Day today, the great artist. He'll be honored by the Los Angeles Jazz Society tonight, but one of the great artists of all time, impressionist artists. And also, may I remind the public that the City Planning Department is having hearings on hillside mansionization starting today, the 17th, in the Peck Park Gymnasium in the harbor area. Tomorrow on the west side at the facility on Exposition, on Exposition Park at 11224 West Exposition Boulevard. And the South Valley meeting will be on Monday the 23rd. On Tuesday the 24th will be a meeting in Council District 2 Field Office in Tahunga. And on Thursday, on the east side, meeting will be in the headquarters for Metro LA. Will be here at City Hall on Tuesday. This is for the mansionization. Invite all interested public members to attend. These public hearings will be held in the evening from 5 to 8 on these nights. Call the City Planning Department at 311 if you want more information. Thank you.
Mr. Rosendahl?
Thank you, Mr. President. Measure B, which is on the ballot, folks, in 2 weeks from today, believe it or not, we're holding a town hall tonight. And we've invited both sides. We got Brian Darcy and Nick Pitsouris and David Friedman and Ron Kay. And then we have two community activists, James Provenzano, who's the president of Clean Air, and Didi Ordette, who's from the neighborhood council world. We're going to have David Nahai do the opening, and then we're going to have a pro and con like the good old days when television actually did town halls. And that's going to be at the Daniel Webster Middle School, which is at 11330 Graham Place on the west side of my district. Again, tonight at 7 o'clock, we're going to have a debate on Measure B. Invite you all to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any adjourning motions today, colleagues? Anybody with adjourning motions? If not, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas,